You ever think about some of the great adventures you've been on in life? My wife and I talk about that sometimes, and we realize that many of the great adventures that we've been on are because of our children. Your kids just take you to places that you probably thought you'd never go. Think of the birth. Birth of each one of our kids is memorable. It was an adventure. Then they go from crawling to walking, and that's another new adventure. Then they go to school, and you think, wow, how's it going to be for them at school? Then they start driving. We have a hill outside our house that is a very difficult hill to manage, and we made sure our kids managed to learn on that hill, and it was an adventure. Then they go off to school or they start their first job, and all those things are adventures. My son took me on an adventure, unforgettable adventure. He was studying in Poland when he was in college. And I went over and visited him in Poland. We went all around Poland and Lithuania. We took the Polski bus, that's what it's called over there. And here's the thing, in the morning, because I didn't speak Polish, I would give all my money to my son. Money in Poland is called zlotys, and I'd give all my zlotys to my son. And we'd travel around Poland and Lithuania, and whenever I wanted to do something, if I wanted to buy a hot dog, I'd have to ask my son for money. Wait till that happens to you, dads. They've been used to asking us for money their whole life, and all of a sudden I was asking my son for money. Those are just great adventures. Well, here's a great adventure in chapter 2 of the book of Matthew that Jesus takes his parents on. Here's what you're going to find. In chapter 1, it's easy to find Jesus. He's all through the genealogy. He's all through the birth of Christ. It's easy to find him. But you hit chapter 2, and it seems like now everybody's looking for Jesus. Look at chapter 2, verse 1. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, Magi from the east came looking for him. They're looking for Jesus. Look at chapter 2, verses 3. When Herod the king heard that he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him, and he gathered people to look for the Messiah. In chapter 2, everybody's looking for Jesus. Here's what happens. King Herod is mad because a new king's been born. And you know what he's going to do? He's out to kill Jesus. He's looking for Jesus, and he's out to kill Jesus, and ruthlessly he kills every baby born in the time of Christ's birth. And what that does is send Jesus' parents on an adventure to Egypt. And they go to Egypt to protect their baby. And Herod decides in chapter 2 to fight God's plan for the world. God has a plan to bring the Messiah in, and Herod is the one who's going to fight that plan. Here's my question for all of us today. Are you fighting God's plan? In today's world, we call it deconstructing, and people are deconstructing. They're doubting God, and they don't want to serve him or be around him anymore. Many people are leaving the church. They are fighting God's plan. Here's what happens in chapter 2 when you fight God's plan. Number 1, it's in verse 16. You become easily fooled. You are a product to be fooled in your life if you start fighting God. It says in verse 16, then Herod saw that he had been tricked by the Magi. Number 1, you fight God's plan, you'll become easily fooled. Number 2, you will miss God's plan for your life. God had planned to call his son out of Egypt. And if you try to stop that plan like Herod, you will miss his plan for your life. Number 3, you see it in verse 7 of chapter 2. Number 3 is you'll trust the wrong people. You'll get in a position in your life where you will start to trust the wrong people. Number 4, you doubt God's plan. You try to defeat God's plan, you will fight an unwinnable battle. Number 5, you won't be able to understand the times. It'll all fool you. Number 6, life will not make sense for you. And number 7, you will get run over in the process of fighting God's plan for your life. Herod was so powerful, everyone thought, that they had to flee to keep the baby Jesus alive. Here's what the first 2 chapters of Matthew tell us. The genealogy, the birth of Christ, the flight to Egypt, All these things make Herod look like he's so powerful, but he's fighting God's plan. And you can't fight God's plan for your life. Throughout all this, God is in complete control. Are you fighting God's plan? Or do you want to join a winnable plan that God has for your life? Our prayer for you is that you would not fight God's plan for your life, but come join his plan. Have a great day.